Story 1. I took a summer job at a private beach. There was one rule we could never break after sunset. Summer jobs usually aren't memorable. You spend a few months doing something you never imagined yourself doing, save a little money, and move on with your life. That's exactly what I expected when I accepted a position as a lifeguard at Crescent Cove. It wasn't a public beach. It belonged to a private coastal community about an hour north of Monterey, California. The pay was almost suspiciously good. $28 an hour, free housing, and a completion bonus if I stayed until Labor Day. The listing had over 200 applicants. I got the job after a 10-minute phone call. Looking back, I don't think they were looking for the best lifeguard. I think they were looking for someone who didn't know the place. The first thing I noticed when I arrived wasn't the beach. It was the silence. Most beaches are loud, kids screaming, music playing, seagulls fighting over food. Crescent Cove felt muted. There were people everywhere, but they spoke quietly, almost instinctively. Even the waves seemed calmer than they should have been. The beach manager introduced himself as Daniel, late 50s, sunburned skin, permanent circles under his eyes. He shook my hand, handed me a radio and a silver whistle. Then he looked at me for a long moment before speaking. "Have you ever ignored a rule because it sounded ridiculous?" I laughed. "Probably." His expression didn't change. "Don't do that here." He walked me to the lifeguard station overlooking the beach. Inside was the usual equipment: rescue board, first aid kit, binoculars, emergency phone, and a laminated sheet taped beside the window. It wasn't titled Rules. It was titled After Sunset Pruster. There were only 5 instructions. Blow the final whistle exactly at sunset. Clear the beach immediately. Do not respond to anyone entering the water afterward. If someone waves at you from the ocean, do not wave back. Stay inside until sunrise. I read them twice, then looked at Daniel. This some kind of prank for the new guy? No! People actually ignore swimmers? They're not swimmers. He walked away before I could ask another question. The first week was almost disappointingly normal. The beach attracted mostly wealthy families who owned vacation homes nearby. Children built sandcastles. Teenagers surfed. Older couples read books beneath umbrellas. The work was easy. Every evening, just as the sun touched the horizon, I'd blow the whistle. The beach emptied within minutes. The residents never questioned it. Visitors sometimes complained, but the homeowners always insisted. We leave before dark. No exceptions. One evening, a little girl walked up to my tower carrying an ice cream. She couldn't have been older than 8. She smiled. "You're new." "I am. My grandma says you shouldn't look at the water after the whistle." I smiled politely. "Why not?" She shrugged. "Because then they know your face." Before I could ask who they were, her mother called her away. I forgot about the conversation until 3 nights later. That evening, the beach was unusually crowded. A local festival had brought hundreds of people to Crescent Cove. The sky turned orange as the sun began to disappear. I checked my watch. Exactly sunset. I blew the whistle. The reaction was immediate. People packed up so quickly it almost looked rehearsed. Within 5 minutes, the beach was empty, except for one man. He stood ankle deep in the water about 100 yards from shore, facing the horizon, perfectly still. I grabbed my radio. "Daniel, I still have someone in the water." His answer came instantly. "Stay where you are. I need to get him out." "No! I can't just leave him there." "You can." His voice was calm, almost too calm. Clues the station. Every instinct I had told me to ignore him. Someone could be drowning. I climbed down from the tower and started walking toward the shoreline. The man never moved. As I got closer, I noticed something strange. His clothes were completely dry, even though the water reached his knees. Then he slowly raised one hand. not waving, pointing, past me. I turned. The beach behind me was empty. When I looked back, the man was gone. No splash, no footprints, nothing. Only calm water. That night I couldn't sleep. The cabin provided by the beach sat just behind the dunes. Around midnight I heard footsteps outside, slow, measured, walking around the building. I looked through the curtains. Nobody. The footsteps continued. Crunch, 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 as if someone were walking across dry sand. But there wasn't any sand outside my window, only wooden decking. Then came a knock. 3 slow taps. I froze. Another 3. Then a voice. "Excuse me." A woman's voice. Soft. "Can you help me?" No response from me. "I'm lost." Another pause. "I can't find the beach." Something about the sentence made my stomach tighten. The beach was 20 yards away. Nobody could miss it. I stayed silent. The knocking stopped. So did the footsteps. The next morning, I opened the front door. Wet footprints covered the wooden porch. They led to my door. And nowhere else. No prints approaching. Only leaving. Over the following days, strange things became normal. People occasionally reported hearing someone calling for help offshore after dark. Nobody investigated. Dogs refused to walk near the shoreline after sunset. Every morning, fresh footprints appeared in the sand, always leading from the ocean, never back into it. I asked Daniel if anyone else noticed. He simply replied, "We stopped asking questions years ago." A week later, a storm rolled in. Heavy clouds covered the coast all afternoon. By 6 o'clock, the beach was almost empty. Only one family remained: a father, a mother, and their teenage son. I gave the final whistle. The parents packed immediately. The boy didn't. Instead, he walked toward the water. His mother shouted after him. He didn't react. His father ran after him. Still no reaction. The boy kept walking, slowly, like he was following someone only he could see. I started running. Daniel grabbed my arm before I reached the shoreline. "Don't! He's walking into the ocean! I know! We have to stop him!" Daniel's grip tightened. "Look at him!" I did. The boy wasn't looking at the sea. He was smiling at someone standing just beyond the breaking waves, someone I couldn't quite make out through the mist. A tall figure, completely motionless. The boy took another step, then another. The water reached his waist, then his chest. His parents were screaming now. The figure never moved. The boy reached out, as if taking someone's hand. Then both of them disappeared beneath the surface. No struggle, no splash, just gone. The Coast Guard searched for 3 days. They never recovered a body. The official report listed it as an accidental drowning. The locals never believed that, because every single one of them had seen the same thing, standing in the water, waiting. That night, Daniel finally told me the truth, or at least the version the town believed. More than 80 years earlier, a passenger ferry had sunk just offshore during a summer storm. Over 100 people drowned. Most of the bodies were never found. Ever since then, every summer, something returned to the beach. Not every night, not every person. Just enough to remind the town that the ocean had never given them back. "Why keep the beach open?" I asked. Daniel stared out at the dark water. "Because when we closed it for one summer," he swallowed hard, "they came into town instead." My last week at Crescent Cove was the hardest. Every sunset felt like waiting for something to happen. Every wave sounded different. Every reflection looked almost human. Then came my final shift. Labor Day. Thousands of visitors. Perfect weather. Nothing unusual. Until sunset. I blew the whistle. People began leaving. Then every radio on the beach activated at the same time. Not with static, with voices. Dozens of voices. Whispering. Some crying. Some laughing. All saying the same sentence. Stay with us. The ocean suddenly went completely still. Not a single wave. Not a breath of wind. The horizon looked wrong. Like the sea had become a sheet of black glass. And standing just beyond the surf, there weren't one or two figures anymore. There were hundreds. Men, women, children, all perfectly still, watching the beach, watching us. No faces, just silhouettes, waiting. Daniel quietly picked up his whistle. So this is why they paid us so well. He blew one final time. The figures didn't move, but every single one of them raised a hand, as if saying goodbye. The waves returned all at once. The silhouettes vanished, and the beach was empty again. I left Crescent Cove the next morning. I never went back. But every summer, usually sometime in July, I wake up just before sunrise. My bedroom smells like salt water. My shoes are covered in wet sand. And sitting on my bedside table is the silver whistle they told me I'd return before I left. I threw it into the Pacific 5 years ago. Every summer, it finds its way back. Story 2. It was supposed to be a normal summer trip. 5 of us rented a small cabin near a hiking region in Colorado. Nothing fancy. Just cheap accommodation, a lake nearby, and a bunch of marked trails we planned to explore during the week. It started harmless. Hiking, swimming, drinking at night. The usual. On the 4th day, everything changed. We were following a trail that was supposed to loop back to the main road. According to the map, it was easy. But Ryan noticed something first. Guys, this isn't on the map. We stopped. On the left side of the trail, hidden behind a fallen tree and thick brush, there was an opening in the rock face. A cave entrance. No sign. No warning. No markings. Just a dark hole in the mountain. Sarah frowned. That definitely wasn't there yesterday. Marcus smiled. Or we just didn't notice it. Ryan was already walking toward it. That should have been the first mistake. The moment we stepped inside, the temperature dropped. Not slightly. Instantly. It felt like walking into a sealed room that hadn't been opened in years. The air was still. No insects. No wind. No echo of the forest behind us. Just silence. Emily turned on her phone flashlight. Let's just look a little. 10 minutes. Nobody objected. That was mistake number 2. The tunnel wasn't natural. That became obvious quickly. The walls were too smooth. Too even. Like something had shaped them intentionally. At first, we joked about it. Ancient civilization stuff, Marcus said. But nobody laughed for long. Because we started noticing marks on the walls. Scratches. Not random. Directional. Like arrows pointing deeper inside. And then we saw the first writing. A name carved into the stone. Sarich. Sarah froze. That's not funny. We assumed it was a prank. Until we found another. Marquis. Then another. Emily. Nobody said my name out loud, but I saw it next. Jack. Exactly as on my ID. We stopped moving. Ryan tried to joke. Okay, that's creepy, but... The sound interrupted him. 3 knocks. From deeper inside the cave. Slow. Deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. Nobody spoke after that. We turned around immediately. Or tried to. The tunnel behind us didn't look the same anymore. It was longer. That was the only way to describe it. Longer than it should have been. Like the cave had stretched while we weren't looking. Emily started panicking. We're just going the wrong way. But the problem was simple. There was only one direction. Forward. We walked faster, then faster. The tunnel never changed. Same stone, same silence, same darkness, until we reached something that shouldn't have been there. A backpack. Old, covered in dust. Then another. Then shoes, placed neatly against the wall, like someone had left them intentionally. Marcus bent down. These look really old. Ryan shone his light further ahead and stopped. There's light! At the end of the tunnel, there was a faint glow, like firelight. We followed it cautiously. The tunnel opened into a wide chamber, and in the center, a campfire, burning, perfectly still flame. No smoke, no source, just fire sitting in the middle of stone. Around it were objects, sleeping bags, a broken flashlight, a camera with no lens, and bones, not scattered, arranged, carefully. Sarah backed away instantly. No, no, we're leaving, right now. But when we turned around, the tunnel entrance was gone. Just a stone wall, smooth, fresh, like it had never existed. Ryan walked up to it and hit it. Nothing. No sound. No vibration. Just resistance. That's impossible. The fire crackled behind us. Then a voice spoke. Calm. Close. You went too far in. We turned around instantly. Nothing visible near the fire, but the flame shifted, like something had moved inside it. Emily whispered, Who's there? Silence. Then, You are not the first. The fire flared slightly, and in that moment, we saw it. A shape behind the flames. Not fully visible. Too tall. Too still. Like it was standing just behind reality itself. Marcus grabbed my arm. We need to stay together. Ryan didn't move. He was staring at the fire, like he recognized it. Then he said something quietly. I think this cave learns people. The voice responded immediately. Yes, and the fire grew brighter. That was when we understood the worst part. We weren't lost. We were being kept. Story 3. Every summer, my parents insisted on taking at least one road trip. No flights, no hotels. Just the 4 of us packed into my dad's old Ford Explorer, driving wherever the road took us. By the summer of 2019, I was 19 years old and honestly thought I had outgrown family vacations. I only agreed because my younger sister, Lily, had been begging for one last trip before she started high school. Our destination was supposed to be Yellowstone National Park. We never made it. It happened somewhere in Wyoming. Dad missed an exit after stopping for gas, and instead of turning around, he decided to follow a smaller highway that the GPS claimed would reconnect with the interstate. It didn't. About 30 minutes later, the paved road became gravel. Then the GPS froze. No signal. No map. Nothing. Dad wasn't worried. We'll find another highway. Mom wasn't as confident. We haven't seen another car in almost an hour. Neither had I. The only things around us were endless pine trees and empty mountains. As the sun started setting, we found an old wooden sign beside the road. Pine Shawl New Cam G Round. No mileage. No arrows. Just the name. Dad smiled. Perfect. We'll stay one night. I don't know why, but the sign immediately made me uncomfortable. The paint looked fresh. The wood didn't. 5 minutes later, we found the campground. It was bigger than I expected. Maybe 20 campsites, several RVs, tents, campfires, people walking around laughing. It looked normal, almost too normal. A man wearing a ranger uniform greeted us before we even parked. Evening. You folks staying the night? Dad nodded. If you've got room, the ranger smiled. We always have room. For some reason, that answer stayed with me. Our campsite was near the edge of the forest. As we unpacked, I noticed something strange. Everyone seemed friendly, but nobody introduced themselves. Nobody asked where we were from. Nobody mentioned where they were headed. It was like every conversation stopped after 2 sentences, just enough to be polite, never enough to actually know anyone. After dinner, Lily wanted to explore. I offered to walk with her. The campground had one long dirt road looping around all the campsites. As we walked, we passed dozens of people sitting around campfires. Every single fire looked identical. Same size, same height, same perfectly orange flames. I finally whispered, "Do you think that's weird?" Lily shrugged. "I guess they all bought the same firewood." Maybe. Or maybe I was already looking for reasons to be nervous. About halfway around the campground, we met an elderly woman sitting alone outside a small camper. She smiled at Lily. "You two should head back before dark," I laughed. "We're already in the campground." She looked directly at me. "I know." Her smile disappeared. "That's why." Before I could ask what she meant, she stood up, went inside her camper, and locked the door. By the time we returned to our campsite, the sun had almost disappeared. Dad had another fire going. Mom was making hot chocolate. For a little while, everything felt normal again. Then, at exactly 9 o'clock, every campfire in the campground went out. At the same time. Not one after another. All at once, the darkness swallowed everything. No one screamed. No one reacted. Within seconds, every fire lit itself again, exactly as before. Dad frowned. "Did you guys see that?" Mom nodded slowly. "I don't think I liked that." Around 10, everyone else went to bed. I couldn't sleep. The campground was strangely quiet. No music. No conversations. No generators. Just whined. Then I heard footsteps. Slow. Steady. Passing our tent. Crunch. 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 I looked outside. A man was walking down the middle of the road carrying an old lantern. He wasn't looking around. He wasn't checking campsites. He was simply walking. 10 seconds later, another person followed him. Then another. Then another. Within a minute, dozens of campers were silently walking in the same direction. No talking. No flashlights. Just lanterns. I quietly woke Dad. "You need to see this." He looked outside. "What are they doing?" Neither of us knew. Curiosity got the better of us. We followed them, keeping our distance. The entire campground seemed to be walking toward the forest. No one looked back. No one spoke. When we reached the tree line, everyone stopped. The people holding lanterns formed a straight line facing into the darkness. Completely still. Then, something moved between the trees. Not fast. Not slow. Just wrong. Like watching a shadow move independently from the object casting it. One by one, every camper lowered their head, as if greeting it. Dad grabbed my shoulder. "We're leaving." We turned around immediately and froze. The campground behind us was gone. No tents, no RVs, no campfires, only trees. The road had disappeared. The campsites had disappeared. It was just forest, as though the campground had never existed. Dad whispered, "Run." We ran. Branches whipped across our faces as we stumbled through the darkness. After what felt like forever, we saw headlights. A pickup truck. An older man stepped out. "You folks okay?" Dad could barely speak. "The campground." The man's face changed. "What campground?" "Pine Hollow." He stared at us for several seconds, then quietly said, "There's never been a campground here." The sheriff searched the area the next morning. Nothing. No tire tracks. No fire pits. No buildings. Not even the wooden entrance sign. It was as if the entire place had vanished overnight. The deputy suggested we had accidentally camped on old logging land and become disoriented. Dad didn't argue. Neither did I. But before we left, the old man who had found us pulled me aside. "I've lived here for 43 years. He pointed toward the forest. "Every few summers, I see lanterns, always in the trees, always moving. But whenever I go looking, they're gone. That was 7 years ago. None of us have gone camping since. Dad sold the Explorer. Mom refuses to drive through Wyoming. Lily doesn't remember much about that night, or at least she says she doesn't. But every July, usually sometime around the middle of the month, I wake up just before dawn. My bedroom smells like pine smoke. The soles of my shoes are covered in dry dirt, and sitting outside my front door is a small metal lantern. Cold. Old. Still covered in fresh ash. I've thrown it away 3 times. It always comes back, waiting for the next summer.